Hey everyone, it's Byron again, here to give a testimony for Jesus Christ. I'm going to begin today by reading some words of Jesus out of Luke chapter 19 and beginning in verse 30, just to kind of set the scene or the stage for you a little bit. Jesus was preparing to make his triumphal entry into Jerusalem. He was just outside Bethany, was where he's at. He told two of his disciples to do this. In verse 30 it says, "Go ye into the village over against you, in the which at your entering ye shall find a colt tied." Now, a colt there is a young ass, as it's written in the King James that I use. It's a young donkey, a colt tied, whereon yet never man sat. Loose him and bring him hither, or to me. So Jesus had just told them to go get this donkey that nobody's ever sat on before and bring it to me. And then he goes on to say, "And if any man ask you, why do ye loose him? Thus shall you say unto him, because the Lord hath need of him." So the two men went off to get that donkey. And then as they were loosing the donkey, a man did ask the question, "Why are you doing this?" And they replied, "The Lord hath need of him," and the man seemed to be okay with that. The story goes on. Jesus makes a triumphal entry into Jerusalem, riding on this young donkey that's never been ridden on before. People have palm leaves and things, and they throw in his way. I thought to myself at some time, okay, what is a donkey? And I began to seek that out. And I'll provide a link in some way, but if you were to go to Google and just type in the word donkey shepherd, when I do that, the first item in there, the link in there, brings up a video about a donkey. I'd like for you to go and see that, because it's very interesting to me that Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a donkey, and Jesus is our shepherd. And on that video I saw that the donkey is also a shepherd. I invite you to go to see that. The other place in the Bible I want to read from is Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 6. I've read this before in another video, but I want to illustrate a point here. I'm going to read the whole verse. The last part of the verse is where the emphasis is going to be, but this is the words that Jeremiah wrote. "I hearkened and heard, but they spake not aright. No man repented him of his wickedness, saying, What have I done? Every one turned to his own course, as a horse rusheth into battle." When I was in school, many of you know that I went into the military, had to go through a certain amount of training. One of the courses that I took was military history. And a portion of that course in military history was dealing with the cavalry. The cavalry is the mobile force that the armies use to move throughout the battlefield. Today, if you were to refer to the cavalry in the military, you're going to be talking about two separate entities. One, a mechanized force that is very mobile, can get around town and snoop and poop, as we used to say in the military. The other is a air force or a helicopter force, as you would see in the Army. A scout. They get out and see what's going on. One of the things that came up during the discussion of the cavalry is in earlier times, when all these mechanized forces were not around, that a horse was used, or not just a horse, but an elephant. One of the characteristics of an elephant is that, or a horse, neither one, have much regard for their own lives. You can take a horse and rush it into a battle, and it will fling itself into harm's way. You see it on the movies, many examples of it on the movies. When you ride that horse, for some reason, and I'm sure horses are smart, but they don't have care for their own selves. So you can run a horse into a gate. You can run a horse into a fence. You can run a horse into a man with a spear. Very interesting that when we look at a donkey, Jesus used a donkey to ride in Jerusalem. A donkey is a shepherd. And let me tell you a little characteristics of the donkey. The donkey is a very smart animal. A donkey will not put itself in harm's way. A donkey also will protect whoever it's around. So if you were trying to use a donkey to rush into the battle, the donkey would be thinking, dude, you're tripping, man. I am not rushing into no battle. Now, if they bring it on me, I'm going to fight, but I will not run in there and get myself hurt. That's the way they think. Now, the title of this video is I'm Miss Rhody. When I was a young child, several of you will actually hear this video and you personally knew Rhody. Rhody was a mule. Now, the way a mule comes about in the world is you take a male donkey and you breed that male donkey with a female horse. And what you get is a cross between an animal that has the smarts to protect things and also not put itself in harm's way, with an animal that has the strength and vitality of the horse. And when you do that cross, the horse takes on the mule takes the physical characteristics of the donkey in stature. But you can still see telltale signs in its ears, on the backs of its shoulders, the stripes, that this horse has got some donkey mixed up in it. But the mind of a mule is superior to that of a horse, in that you cannot train a mule like you train a horse. If you were to take a mule and decide to teach it to jump fences, you might find yourself in a difficult situation, because a mule's going to be thinking, okay, look, Byron, I know you feed me, dude, but I can go around this fence much easier than I can jump it. That's the way they think. When I was a young kid, Rhody was a mule. I didn't know all these things about donkeys and horses and mules, although my dad could have told me this and written it out on multiple sheets of paper. My grandfather as well. But I fell in love with Rhody, because when I would go to my grandfather's house, I actually got to ride on Rhody's back. Many of the times that I was riding on her back, she was actually hooked to a plow and plowing a garden. One of the most interesting observations that I ever made about Rhody was that there was this one spot in the garden at the end of a row that my grandfather would have to plow as far possible as he could. And Rhody would walk up to the edge of this drop-off at the end of this row, and I would look over the side of her shoulders like, girl, are you fixing to go off? But she would stop within inches of the drop-off. And when she would stop, every time her ears would turn backwards, and she would listen for my grandfather to say one of two words. One of those words was ye, and the other word was haw. I don't know which way ye haw is, but Rhody knew. Because when he would say one of those words, Rhody would start to her left or to her right, depending on which one of those words he said. And she and he, as a team, would do a 180-degree turn and be right back into the other row, plowing the next row. I think that's an incredible story. A little animal I had a relationship with. I think Rhody I think they told me she was 26 at the time. But as I'm here, I'm 47 years old now, and I miss Rhody. But I don't only just see Rhody as a mule that had the spirit of a donkey in the stature of a horse. But God set this up from the beginning. He planned it out that these horses that didn't know how to take care of themselves, rush into things headlong, bang into objects, jump over fences without knowing what's on the other side. He planned all along if those horses were us, which Jeremiah refers to. God planned all along to put the spirit of a donkey in that horse. When Jesus died, was buried, was resurrected, and ascended into heaven, a group of 120 people waited and waited and waited in the upper room to have that spirit put inside them. And once that spirit was put inside them, the kingdom of God began. And God, not man, added to it daily as he saw fit. I guess I want to just tell you, I miss Rhody, man. I miss seeing her listen to the Master's voice, which was my grandfather, and doing what he said and pulling on that plow like she did so beautifully. I also miss that in people, man. In this great, vast world that we have here. Sometimes I think we have a lot of horses trying to play like they've got a spirit of a donkey or Jesus in them. When in fact, they haven't humbled themselves to the point and cried out to God and said, God, I need you, man. I got to have you. Cry out to God. Cry out to Jesus. Have him put his spirit in you. It was set from the beginning of time. You need him. And the worst thing, I say this a lot, sometimes we don't know enough to know that we don't know enough. Sometimes we don't realize that we don't know enough to know Jesus, man. Humble yourself before God. Cry out to Jesus. And learn to wait on him. Not say, Jesus, do this for me, and take off and do your own thing. Jesus, I need you. And just wait on him. And wait on him. And wait on him. And when you've waited on him, and he fills you with that power from above, you'll still have the stature of a man. But you'll have the mental characteristics of Jesus. Thank you.